Good morning, everyone. This is Kevin, and we're inside China Business. There are finally some very encouraging trends in U.S. higher education. Thousands of administrators are losing their jobs. Entire departments, even universities, are closing, and this is an industry that is undergoing radical transformation. Operating budgets and staffs are being slashed. Campuses are being consolidated. And a lot of the free money that's been coming in from international students, that's drying up and going away. American families are telling pollsters that their confidence in higher education is at an all-time historic low. And that is impacting the decisions households are making. Fewer American students are enrolling in universities than ever before. And a lot of that money is going away. These conditions now are forcing a reckoning among American college administrators. What is bad for them is going to be good for us. For example, with respect to DEI, there was never much of a market for this anyway. And now, if even American corporations are pulling away, colleges will have no choice but to follow. There's just no money in it anymore. There are encouraging trends also in the skilled trades, where public perception has finally caught up to the reality, which has always been true, that a air conditioning repairman or a diesel mechanic or a plumber or electrician can easily out-earn most college graduates. And workers in these fields can do so without taking on giant debts to repay and spending 4 years in university mostly learning things they'll never see again on the job. This is probably a primary factor for declining university enrollments for young men. We also have a situation in tech with respect to computer programming and coding jobs. There are tech companies now who are accepting professional certifications, which can often be earned online, in lieu of a university degree. These positions still are not common yet, but it is beginning and accelerating. So this may be something that's going to be a feature that will change university enrollments in these fields too in the future. All of this said, we still do need millions of college graduates in STEM fields: science, technology, engineering, math, business, computer sciences. We still need universities to train our young people to do those things. And it's still a complicated choice for families, for parents and the students, where best to attend the universities to learn these skills. And just as important, how much money should we spend on it? And is it worth the extra money, the extra expense to go to an elite top school instead of one that's more affordable? One of the most helpful analyses on this question was published in the Wall Street Journal back in 2016. I realize it's dated, but it's still valid, and the results are important to share. Here is the headline, and they're trying to find out whether the expenses required to go to a very selective university pay for themselves later on. And they conclude that for most careers, probably not. The conventional wisdom here suggests that families get what they pay for with respect to university educations. That if you spend more money to get into a good university, that will pay for itself with a higher salary later on. And that motivates millions of families to get into the best university they can afford, up to the amount they can even borrow. But is that a good strategy? does the prestige of a university predict future salaries? And that's what this study analysis are intended to find out. So here is how the researchers conducted this study. First, they surveyed over 7,000 college graduates 10 years after graduation. Then they divided the careers into broad categories, such as science, business, engineering, and so on. Then they separated the universities themselves into three classifications. They classified the universities as selective, mid-tier, or less selective. And so, as you'd probably guess, selective is the Ivy Leagues, the very best public schools. Less selective are typically public universities, many of which have open enrollment programs. And mid-tier are all the universities that are in the middle. The researchers did find that the starting salaries for top schools were higher than the others in most fields. But after 10 years of work, the pay was about the same no matter where the students graduated from. In the STEM fields, science, technology, engineering, and math, there was no difference at all. And in particular engineering fields, same thing. After 10 years on the job, there was no significant difference in earnings between the graduates from very top schools or no-name programs. And the Wall Street Journal speculates here that it's probably because graduates in these fields have to learn the same broad body of knowledge. The curricula are the same no matter which university you go to, and the skills needed to do those jobs are highly valued by employers no matter where you learned it from. And the paper uses a good example here of a graduate from Penn compared to a graduate of Texas A&M. The starting salary is different by just a few $100s, but the difference in the cost of attendance is $167,000. Moving on to business graduates, we have a different take on it than the Wall Street Journal does. The paper says that there is a statistically significant difference between graduates of top programs and mid-tier or less selective schools when it comes to business. When we look at the data, we disagree. When you look at the data points from their study, it does seem to support their contention that prestige matters. For example, they compared Cal Berkeley, which is a selective school, and it does seem to have a better payoff than Illinois Wesleyan, which is a mid-tier school. First, I don't see $140,000 and $128,000 as that meaningful, frankly. The analysts conclude that this is more significant than we do. But our disagreement on this point comes from another angle also. When we consider where the graduates are probably going to be living after graduation, a graduate of UC Berkeley is probably going to be living in California. A graduate of Illinois Wesleyan probably will not be. He is likely to be living somewhere in the Midwest. And almost anyone will tell you that $128,000 outside California will buy you a lot more than $140,000 inside California. So this is something we do have to take into account. Compare graduates from Georgetown University and the University of Georgia. I want to know where they're going to be living after graduation, because the person living in the Northeast, especially in DC, is going to have a much higher cost of living than somebody living in the suburbs of Atlanta. And there's another thing to consider too, that if the Illinois Wesleyan graduate goes to California, or the University of Georgia graduate goes to work in Boston, they're going to be paid Boston salaries or California salaries. The employer is not going to mark down their pay offer just because they're graduates of schools outside California. We know that these extra details are beyond the scope of what the study is trying to demonstrate and what the Wall Street Journal wants to do. But they are important considerations to pass along for families to think about. So that's business. Let's move on to computer science. Going over to computer science, the numbers are the same. There is no difference between a graduate from an Ivy League or from Silicon Valley or the University of Delaware. In 10 years, they're all making the same money. There is another important factor that must be considered when you're talking about selective universities. It's often very difficult to get into certain programs inside these universities. For example, you might get into Stanford, but it's very difficult to get into Stanford's AI program or the one at Carnegie Mellon. This is not a feature of less selective universities. Another factor is the opportunity cost. Going to a selective school is just harder. All the courses are harder, not just the ones in your major. And if it takes you 5 years to graduate instead of 4, that is another year of paying expensive tuition and expensive room and board. Plus, it's an extra year of not being in the workforce earning a salary. So all of this is good news. This should come as a relief to millions of families who just don't know what to do this time of year when we're trying to decide the best place to send our son or daughter to university. College is expensive. Mistakes are expensive. And it's a decision you cannot get back later. And unless you have $200,000 just sitting in a college fund, waiting for the kid to make up his mind, we're probably going to be borrowing a lot of money to send him somewhere. Thanks to this report, everything got easier. Now there's just 2 simple questions. What do you want to study? Then pick the most affordable, least expensive university you can find. That will probably be a public university, quite possibly in your hometown or close to your hometown. And that'll save a lot of money too. After graduation, it all comes down to work ethic, being friendly and polite to everybody, good to your customers, good to your managers, staying current in your industry so you can help your company survive and thrive and grow. So what do all these numbers mean? They mean go to school wherever it is and study hard. Go to work wherever it is and study hard. And if you do those things, nobody is going to care where you got your degree from ages ago. That's what these numbers mean. So the Wall Street Journal article itself is paywalled, but we'll share it on the following pages. The study it references is also paywalled, but we'll share most of that too. And you can click the pause button to take the time to read it or share the screen, whatever you care to do. And during this video, we focused on engineering, computer science, and business, but the study and the article went into the other fields of study also, which we will share on the following screens. We hope this was helpful to somebody. Thanks for watching. Be good.